Welcome to Women's Sports Weekly, where women's sports happens every day, but we talk about it once a week. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Carolyn. Women's Sports Weekly is a podcast where we discuss the latest news, explore interesting stories, and share our love for women's sports. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Follow us and rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Happy Pride Month!
Yay, happy Pride.
Have you gotten out your Pride Christmas tree, your Pride elf on the shelf, and written your gay agenda down?
I have not. Have you?
Yeah, I've got it all going. It's all in the mix.
Where do you hide this Pride Christmas tree that somehow I don't know about?
I just like the idea of straight people not knowing what happens in a queer household and us every night writing out our gay agenda of what we hope to accomplish and not touching our little gay elf on the shelf.
Definitely does not happen in our house. I don't know about other households.
A girl can dream. Okay, let's get into it this week. Let's get into the highlight reel. We are going to start with the Professional Women's Hockey League, the PWHL Finals.
Yes.
This came down to Game 5 between number 4 Minnesota and number 3 Boston. The top two seeds were knocked off. A great inaugural PWHL Finals. So I really thought that Minnesota was going to win it in Game 4, which happened last Sunday, 2 Sundays ago now. They thought they had won it. They were in double overtime. They scored a goal. It seemed like the game was over because it's golden goal. However, the play was reviewed and it was overturned for goalie interference. One of the players did slide into the goalie and prevent her from making the save. It was very interesting because it was in Minnesota. The place was going wild. They thought they had just won the inaugural PWHL championship, and then it got turned back. And then just over a minute later, Boston's Alina Mueller capitalized on a second chance and won in overtime to force Game 5.
That sucks they couldn't win at home.
I know.
Because then they had to go to Boston for Game 5.
Yep. So Game 5 was held in Boston. Minnesota was just dominant.
Yeah, I feel like watching it, they had complete control over the game. I think once they had scored their first goal, it just seemed like they had it in the bag.
Liz Sheppers scored in the second period. Michaela Kava scored in the third. And then captain Kendall Coyne-Schofield scored the final goal to make it 3-0. Nicole Hensley on Minnesota made 17 saves.
Unbelievable. I love when a goalie has a big day like that.
Crazy. And a shutout. So anytime you can get a blank sheet for the other team.
Especially 17 saves. It's not like a shutout, 2 saves and whatever. She had a game.
Taylor Heisey received playoff MVP from Minnesota after leading with 5 goals in the PWHL playoffs. And she finished tied for first in points with 8 in 10 games played. She was also the first overall pick by Minnesota in the inaugural PWHL draft. So a great, stellar rookie season for her.
Sounds like a great first draft pick.
Yeah, very smart. Minnesota actually entered the PWHL playoffs on a 5-game losing streak.
Wow.
They lost the first 2 games of their semifinal matchup against Toronto. They came back and then they won 3 straight games to make it to the PWHL Finals, and they play against Boston. It's going back and forth. They have to go to Game 5. Again, this is the 4th seeded team out of 1 through 4. They were the 4th seeded, and they came back and won it all. So very cool to see in the inaugural season of the PWHL.
Yes, and I always say it's crazy when the U.S. teams come out on top over Canada. Yes. And to not even have a Canadian team in the final when it comes to hockey is pretty impressive.
And we expect that these teams are going to have names soon. So it's not just going to be the Boston team, the Minnesota team, the New York team. We're going to have some cool names coming our way. So looking forward to that too.
That and some mascots.
My favorite mascot, even though I am not a Philly fan. Actually, I want to do a whole episode on mascots. You know me. I love mascots. Gritty, the NHL mascot for Philadelphia, is the best mascot I've ever seen. However, Ellie from the New York Liberty is quickly showing Gritty up in terms of how great of a mascot. So if I have the opportunity to love even more mascots, this is a great opportunity for me.
It is.
I think either in a past life or it is my calling that I must be a mascot.
You should try out.
I think I would be good.
If Denver gets women's sports teams,
Could you
which
imagine?
Still waiting. I expect that you'll be at the tryout line for the mascot.
That is the Denver Nuggets. Their mascot is also very, very good and like can make half court shots from a ladder, all of these things. So I say that I think I would be good, but it would take a lot of practice. But I'm up for the challenge, and I will gladly quit my regular job in order to study to become a mascot and get paid. The mascot in Denver gets played really, really well.
Yeah, you probably have to go to some like acrobatic school, but with all your yoga expertise, I feel like you could figure it out.
Okay, I'm not great at acrobatics, but we'll work on it.
Next up, the U.S. women's national team played in their first friendly versus Korea. We had talked about this a ton last week. They made their way over to Colorado. The U.S. ended up winning 4-0.
Commanding. We love to see it.
Emma Hayes, it was her first game as head coach for the U.S. women's national team. Denver drew a sold-out crowd. What do you think this means for Denver moving forward?
I hope it proves that we can facilitate a women's sports team.
I mean, really hope so too.
There were over 19,000 people there. We were there. Did we go in? No, because we were dummies and didn't get tickets. Did we have a great time with our friends? Yes. And we tailgated outside the whole time, and it was so fun.
And it was fun to see all the other families tailgating, a lot of little kids, boys and girls wearing U.S. women's national team jerseys, and everyone was just out having a good time. And then the line getting into the stadium was massive.
Yeah.
And every time the U.S. scored, the whole stadium just erupted. We were outside the stadium for the whole game. It was a sold-out, packed stadium, and I love that.
Nothing makes me more patriotic than going to a national team game. It just... Everyone's in red, white, and blue. It was Pride, so it was like this beautiful red, white, and blue and rainbow day.
Yes, I love the Pride numbers that they wore on their uniforms.
Yeah, and so it was just great. And I love to see that because I think that's what the U.S. represents at its best is patriotism and inclusivity. And it was just a really nice day to be part of.
So Sophia Smith, Mal Swanson, and Lindsay Horan are all from Colorado, which is pretty cool.
I know. I was thinking that they must have had a lot of family there, which is really so nice to have.
If I were good enough to play on a national team, playing in your hometown must be an awesome experience.
Yes. Kat Macario and Mal Swanson are back playing for the U.S. It's so great to see them. They both had injuries and they both came in and they both looked really good. I am really excited to see how they may use Kat Macario in this attacking midfielder position. I am just really excited to see this attacking third, that front line, moving forward under Emma Hayes, because that's what she's known for. She's known for developing the attacking piece of it. And so I'm excited to see where it's headed.
Speaking of Mal Swanson, she scored her first goal in the 34th minute of the game. So not only is she back in Colorado, but to be back playing for the U.S. and to score a goal, that had to feel really good.
To know just like, okay, I can do this. I can do it. I'm not hurt. I'm back in and I'm able to provide for my team. Mm-hmm. Tierna Davidson, defender, scored in the 37th minute off a corner kick from Kat Macario. She headed it right in, but she wasn't done there. After halftime, she scored again in the 48th minute off another header. She's also gay, so happy Pride Month for her. 2 goals from a defender who normally does not score at all, so that was very cool. And then Mal Swanson scored the final goal in the 74th minute.
So 2 players, 4 goals. And then some subs also saw some time. Casey Kruger replaced Emily Fox at the half, and she is a defender.
Also subs, Sam Staub came in, Rose Lavelle, Jaden Shaw, and Crystal Dunn all subbed in at the 61st minute. This was Sam Staub's first cap. She is 27 years old. A cap is when you get to play in a game for your national team. So anytime you get to actually play in the game, it's called getting a cap. And so she got her first cap at 27 years old. And then Corbin Albert subbed in later in the game for Lindsay Horan. Corbin was wearing number 5 instead of number 15, which I thought was interesting because of the comments she made about Megan Rapinoe. Megan Rapinoe is number 15. Corbin Albert also was wearing number 15. So now she was wearing number 5. She was in the Pride gear. I have feelings about Corbin Albert, and I said this the last time we spoke about her. I do think it's an opportunity for growth. I'm only going to view this as a good thing. She changed her number, which I think I'm going to read that message. It's like, I see what I did and I'm not going to continue to wear that number. I'll change my number. and I'm wearing the pride gear, I'm viewing this as a step in the right direction, because I was going to say that it was homophobic to even put her in. I'm just kidding. I'm really kidding. Hoping this is an opportunity for growth for her. She is 20 years old. She's super young. Get on board and wear that rainbow and have some fun. The best part of that whole thing of her subbing in was that Lindsey Horan gave Naomi Girma the captain's armband. I love Naomi Girma. She's also very young, 23 years old. And she got that captain armband when Lindsey Horan came out. And I just think that speaks volumes about who she is as a person, who she is as a leader, to be that young and to get the armband with the sub out. Only good things, hopefully, for Naomi Girma coming down the line.
Question for you.
Yes.
Are you going to get that captain's band to go with your Naomi Girma uniform that you just
Could
bought?
you imagine me walking around with a captain's band?
I can imagine. Yeah. Maybe I'll have to get it for you.
Please don't. I don't need any bigger of an ego than I already have. Like I said, so Emma Hayes is the one who organizes the attack on the team. She said that in other U.S. sports, how there's coaches for each position and coaches for the defenders and the midfielders and the forwards. She's the main person for the attacking team. So she started with Mallory Swanson, Sophia Smith, Trinity Rodman, and Kat Macario as that attacking midfielder, but those three up at the top as forwards. And then she has options on the bench with Alex Morgan, Crystal Dunn, Rose Lavelle, and Jaden Shaw. It'll be very interesting, and we'll talk about this a little bit later. It'll be very interesting to see what they do in Tuesday's matchup against Korea again, who they're using, because like I said, the Olympics are coming and they have to get that roster down. For our deep dive this week, I think it would be great to deep dive into Pride Month and talk about what Pride means to us, the history of it, some stats, all that good stuff.
Sound good? I think it's important to recognize.
Pride Month started with the Stonewall riots. The riots began after a police raid at the Stonewall Inn in New York City. It is a gay bar located in Lower Manhattan. And so we've been to Stonewall before.
Yes, we have.
So the police would do these raids at establishments where they knew gay people were, just kind of to make it a little bit more difficult for them, just to kind of ruin their night. The Stonewall was also allegedly owned by the mafia at the time. And so they said that they didn't make certain payments, and that's why they went in there. So they went into Stonewall. The police just tried to cause some chaos. Within Stonewall were some activists who were just like, enough is enough. Like, stop bothering us. We're just trying to have a good time. We're just trying to be in our community. So of those activists, Marsha P. Johnson was there, who, if you don't know anything about Marsha P. Johnson, there's a great documentary about her. Unfortunately, she was murdered, but did some amazing things for gay and trans rights within this time period. Sylvia Rivera was also there, and Storm DeLavier was also there, and they were credited for inciting the riots. Now, if you ask them if they were actually there, that's kind of hazy, because none of them at the time actually wanted to admit that they were the ones there out of fear that something would happen to them. The year after the riots, the first Pride marches were held in several U.S. cities, and the goal was to commemorate the Stonewall riots and further push for liberation. Really, the first marches were more of a protest than they are a celebration. I feel like now we have kind of this mix of both, definitely a celebration of Pride, and then also we're also here to make sure that our rights are protected moving forward. These first Pride marches were trying to bring more visibility to the LGBTQ plus community and say, we're here, we have families, and we have families, some of them who are supportive and some of who are not, and we cannot continue to hide in these tiny enclaves. Like, we are here and we deserve to be recognized. So let's get into some stats. I hear a lot of, why do we need Pride? Like, why do they keep doing this? Like, what is the point? And I want to throw out some stats, because we definitely still need Pride in our country, in the US specifically, and around the world. So data from the ACLU shows that there's over 500 anti-LGBTQ plus bills in 2024 around the country. Each of the previous 3 years, so 2021, 2022, and 2023, were record-setting years for anti-LGBTQ plus legislation.
It's crazy.
And like, instead of protecting people who need the most protection, you're just making it harder for them. The FBI's annual crime report showed a 19% increase in anti-LGBTQ plus bias crimes and a 35% increase in anti-transgender bias crimes. More than half of transgender and non-binary people feel unsafe walking in their own neighborhoods, compared to 36% of all LGBTQ plus adults our transgender and non-binary people especially feel the most unsafe. 36% of LGBTQ plus adults is very high, but we really need to start paying attention and helping and protecting our trans and non-binary folks.
And it's interesting the feeling of safety in general, being from the LGBTQ plus community. I feel it whenever I leave a city.
Yeah.
So in Denver, I feel pretty safe. We're surrounded by other queer people. You see them around more. I'm not going to lie, when I go back to New Jersey, just not being in a city and being in the suburbs, it doesn't feel as safe to me. Or even outside of Denver and Colorado, I notice I watch what I'm doing a little more closely, and it's just not a great feeling to have to feel that way. So for transgender and non-binary folks, I can't even imagine that being elevated to a new extreme.
It is difficult. I mean, we go back to New Jersey. New Jersey is relatively progressive state on the East Coast. And when we're in our suburbs, you definitely feel it. I mean, even when we've had experiences in beach towns in New Jersey that have gotten really uncomfortable really fast because of us simply being together.
Yeah.
So we need Pride because people continue to be discriminated against for their sexuality, gender identity, and gender expression. And Pride really is an affirmation that LGBTQ plus folks belong and they're essential. This is something that I've had to come to learn, is that LGBTQ folks are essential to our culture. They're essential to our American culture. They're essential to our world culture. LGBTQ plus folks have always been here. Here. It's just whether they've been comfortable enough to come forward and say exactly who they are. Let's get into why Pride is important for us.
Yes.
I'll get into a little bit of my story, and then I would love if you could share yours too.
Yeah.
I came out when I was 19. I had mentioned this in one of our earlier episodes when I was talking about my dad. I was very nervous to come out. Growing up, I knew that something was different about me, and I knew that I was definitely gay. And I say gay, and I say bisexual, and I say pansexual. Those are words I use to describe myself. Everyone uses something different. For me personally, I use the words interchangeably. For others, it's very important that they just have one word that describes them. And I know you like to use different words. I'm just going to use gay today. I knew I was gay, but I would try to convince myself that I wasn't. This was in early high school. And even before that, even before high school, I knew. I remember I used to make collages. I was really into surfing, and they would all be of women. And my brother would come and look at the collage, and he'd be like, why are there only girls in bikinis on this? And I just now looking back, I'm able to be like, oh yeah. But it's just interesting how it's always been there. For a very long time, I just tried to convince myself that I wasn't. I went to college and I started playing softball. It wasn't because softball made me gay, although
Are you sure?
yeah. Although I think my mom thought that. But when I got to South Carolina and I was part of the softball team, I got to interact with a lot of the other different athletes from different sports, and it was just accepted.
Yep.
It was just this really cool environment. And being in South Carolina, which is a whole other story, for South Carolina athletics, the straight people were okay with you being gay. Some of the gay people were out, some weren't out, and that was totally okay. And it just felt like this really, really great environment. And it showed me that I could have a life like this and it could be okay. I was looking at it and I was like, oh, they're okay. They came out and they're okay. And they're living their life. And they're actually living a life that's really amazing and one that I want. I decided to come out when I was 19. I started dating someone at South Carolina, and I was like, I'm not going to hide this. And I need my parents to know. I felt very close with my parents, and my dad was great. He was the easiest person to tell. And with my mom, it definitely took some time. It was really hard for probably 2 years. And some people, it's much longer than that. I feel like, and I can only speak from my point of view of what I was experiencing from that time. And my mom may have a different experience of what she was experiencing that time. So I'm just going to speak from my reality. And my reality was that she had a really grand idea of what my life was going to look like.
Yep.
It wasn't the idea she had in her head. She also felt that she was very close to me, and she was. We were very close, but I was lying to myself the whole time, hoping that it wasn't true. And so how was my mom supposed to know when I was trying to hide it from myself? And so I felt I think she felt, how did I not realize this? And I feel like definitely older generations have this idea of what a gay person is and what they look like and how they move. And that just wasn't what I was necessarily doing at the time. We are great now. And she loves you. We had to have a lot of conversations and she was open to having them. And she was open to listening. And I think that's such a great part about my mom, is that she is open to listening. Although she might not understand, she is always open to listening and always open to having the conversation. She never, ever shut me down. That gave me a pathway to be like, I can continue to have this conversation with her because she is actually open to having it, which I think is very important. So I went to my first Pride Parade with my dad.
Love that.
And I wish people could just know my dad. I wish everyone could know my dad, because he was this larger than life person. He was huge. He had this thick New Jersey accent. He had this huge head, huge arms, big belly, was so super masculine and loved going to the Pride Parade.
Yep.
And he was just in his element there. My first memories of the Pride Parade is the joy. I remember the joy of the people who attended the parade. I remember the joy of the people who were in the parade. It was so important to me because at that time, my first Pride Parade, I had so much internalized homophobia. I remember when I first came out, I was like, if I could change this, I would. If I could not be this person, I would. But unfortunately, I fell in love with someone.
Unfortunately?
Well, that's how I felt at the time.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I fell in love with this person, and now this is who I am. And if I could change it, I would. I don't feel that way anymore. But going to the Pride Parade, I was like, I don't need to be like, these people are just living their lives, having joy about it. Like, why am I feeling so guilty about it? But I think I knew that it was hurting some of the people around me. I was just like, if I could not be gay, I would choose not to be gay. And that's really sad for me to say, because I was part of this amazing community, and college athletics really allowed me to see that amazing community. It was really important for me to see, both in the athletic field and in the Pride Parade, that you could have a really rich life. You could do anything that you wanted in life.
I'm sorry you felt that way. I know how that feels, and it's not a good feeling, but can obviously see you've come a long way from that, and I'm just happy you were able to.
I feel bad that I ever said that I wish I was different. Now looking back, I just am like, oh, it's so sad. But this is why Pride is so important, because my sexuality of who I am now has led to some of the most amazing friendships, has led to this amazing community that I would never get to be part of, where people are truly themselves. Now I have this amazing partner, an amazing relationship. Like, if I was not who I am, I would not have this between you and I. And that would be horrible. Right? Pride and all of this has led me to this spot where I get to be truly who I am and find an amazing partner who I would have never found if I wasn't truly myself.
I love you too.
Thank you. The one thing that I want to just end with is, for a long time, I could not tell myself I love myself. I'm going to get upset. I just struggled to do that for so many reasons, not being able to love myself. And then I did a lot of work and I started to tell myself I love myself, but I didn't believe it. But I was just trying to fake it till I made it. I'm going to try to get my shit together so that I don't sound crazy. Now I can finally say that I do love myself and believe it. And to me, that's the importance of Pride. That is what Pride gave to me. It gave me an inclusive environment. It gave me an opportunity to love myself and to not change who I am, but truly embrace it. That's what I think Pride is about truly being exactly who you are. And that can apply to anyone, whether you're gay, straight, trans, cis, anyone. Can you be exactly who you are, and can you embrace it rather than trying to hide parts of yourself? To me, that is what Pride is about, honoring exactly who you are. And for me now at 33 years old to say that I'm able to tell myself that I love myself and actually believe it, that's because of things like Pride.
Yep.
And being around people who have showed me that it's okay. That's, for me, why Pride is important on a personal level. But I would love for you to tell us about why Pride is important to you.
Well, first of all, very well said, and thank you for sharing. Obviously can see you got emotional and understand where that comes from, but I'm just happy to see that you're able to truly say you love yourself and actually feel it.
Yeah. Thanks.
Pride is definitely important for me for a ton of different reasons. I think at the end of the day, what I look for most is I just want to be accepted as others are accepted and treated equally to my counterparts who may be straight or don't identify as gay, because I think at the end of the day, that's all anyone wants, right? I came out after meeting you when I was 22 years old. So you said 19. Somehow when I came out, I felt like it was light years behind you. You came out as a freshman in college and I met you after college. So I just feel like you definitely had, it felt like a lifetime of years under your belt ahead of me is what it felt like.
It wasn't, right? But I was at the point where my family was very accepting, where I had multiple girlfriends by that point. And so everyone was on board.
And I do agree with a lot of the things you were saying. So growing up, I could think of a million times where I felt a certain way or knew something was there and I just kept suppressing it. I got so good at lying to myself that I truly believed, oh, it's just not an issue because it's not true. There would just be feelings that came up, or I don't know how to explain it. It was just things that were pointing, are you gay? And it was like, no. Yes. Suppress. Yeah. There were always comments growing up, whether it be just in school or by family members, by anyone that I was surrounded by, that was a reminder, like, gay equals bad. Like, that's truly how I felt. I was like, too many people don't accept it. Can't be you, won't be you. You go to church, like all these things.
Yeah. You just weren't even letting it enter your head.
Exactly. And every time it did, it was like, I just would pretend it didn't. Yeah. There were relationships I was in growing up with guys, and I just remember feeling like there was something really wrong with me because my friends would talk about their boyfriends and the excitement they had, and they just wanted to be with them. And I was like, I thought to myself, like, I don't feel any of that. Like, I just played along because I was like, I don't want people to think like I'm weird or what is wrong with her. And I didn't really feel like there was anyone I could talk to, because my high school, maybe there was one gay person who was out, and college, there were more people who were out, but I just wasn't comfortable enough yet to get there. But just to be able to be surrounded by a few more people, and to your point, you mentioned to see they're okay and happy, that definitely helped. But I just wasn't there yet. I wasn't ready. I hadn't met anyone that I was like, okay, it's time to explore this a little bit. So I kind of just kept living my life as I was. And then after college, a whole year after college, you walked along into my life during our softball league, and these feelings started to come up again. I was like, okay, these are here to stay. Like, there's no suppressing this. And I just realized it was something I was going to have to face.
And did you know I was gay at the time?
I did not, which is so interesting. I remember stalking your Instagram, and I was like, I just could not figure it out.
Truth be told, your gaydar is a little
It's
rough.
really bad. It's really bad. But I just knew that you and I got along, and I knew I wanted to spend time with you and be around you and talk to you. And whether that meant we were just going to be friends or not, I didn't really know at the time.
Yeah. Meanwhile, my sister played on the softball team we played on, which was a bar league. And I wasn't able to go to the first few games. And she came home one day and she was like, there's a girl on the team. I think you're going to like her.
And I was like, just so funny to think back to that time.
I know. It's so crazy. She called it from the very beginning.
Yeah. And you and I truly just were friends in the beginning and just chatted and texted a lot. And finally,
you thought we were friends. Yeah. I knew the whole time. I was like, I'm definitely into this person. I'm not sure if she's gay. I'll figure that out later and we'll see where this goes.
Yeah. And then after a few months of texting and then finally hanging out in person, and we just opened up to each other, and I was like, okay, I am not going to hide this. I think probably after a month of us seriously talking and being open with each other, I was like, I need to come out to my family because I'm very close with them, and this is not something I want to hide. I don't want you just coming over, hanging out as my quote unquote friend.
And I had made it clear to you, your coming out process is your coming out process. And I said, for me personally, I'm not going back into the closet. Yeah. I won't be lying. That's just something that I'm not willing to do anymore. But you have to do exactly what you need to do in order to take care of yourself and your family.
Oh, so coming out was so much fun. Luckily, my friends were great. It was just so easy with them. And it wasn't easy for me to say it out loud because I was just super scared. It was definitely really difficult with family. I, growing up, thought my love with my family and their love for me was unconditional. And I learned in some of those moments that it felt more conditional, which
Yeah.
was really hurtful. And I think, I don't know if it was a few years or I don't even know now at this point. We've been together, 9 years?
Yeah.
So it's hard to remember timelines. But I just remember not wanting to be around them because I was so uncomfortable and I just couldn't stand that feeling. And you had been out for a few years already, so your family was accepting. And I was like, why wouldn't I just spend more time with them?
It was hard because I had been past that point when we met with my family, and the response from my family was different than the response from yours. I knew it was going to get better, but it was difficult. We both are very close with our families and know our families love us. And then to go through that, it's just, it was really difficult to watch because I could see you would come on dates with me and you would just have been crying. And I'd be like, hey, what's going on? And you were like, it's fine. And I'm like, it's fine. You just came out of the car crying. But we were early in our relationship. So I think you were trying to put on, I'm good with you. Like, I want to be happy when we're together. But I could just tell that it was a struggle. Yeah.
But that was so really hard just not spending that time with my family. So definitely a lot of conflicting things. My family has obviously come around and we're married now, and everyone was at the wedding and so supportive and happy. And it honestly just very thankful for that. But there were a few years that were really rough. And I think Pride is just a great reminder to be authentically yourself, and for me to be authentically myself and to be honest about who I am as a person and honest about who I love, because our relationship deserves to be shared with other people. It's not something I would ever want to hide. When I'm at Pride or surrounded by other queer people, I think that's also a good reminder, and it's a safety thing. And just seeing people live out loud, I think, is really important, because it's like, we're here.
We've always been here.
We've always been here. Whether you're going to accept me or not, that's on you. But I'm not going to hide because it makes you, quote unquote, uncomfortable.
Yeah. And I remember I would talk to my dad about other friends coming out, and he would be like, at some point, the family's going to decide, am I going to have a relationship with my daughter, my son, or am I not? And am I going to be the type of person who doesn't have a relationship with my daughter or son or child because of this thing? Or am I just going to choose to have a relationship with them because that's what's most important? Luckily, both of our families made the choice to continue to have a relationship. Although it takes time, and although we see parts of our family we probably wish we didn't know about, I think it's all really important to this growing process. It's really hard to have the difficult conversations, but I think it's so important in the long run. And it sucks that it has to be the queer people who have to go through those conversations with family members who might not be as supportive. But the growth that I've seen is just, it's the change that I've seen, not just in your family, but in numerous friends whose families have not been supportive from the beginning, is just amazing. People can change. And I just think that's such a amazing thing, an important piece about Pride as well.
Yes, definitely. So happy Pride Month. It's also great to see the sports teams and the different leagues celebrate by wearing uniforms with the rainbow symbol on it, or however it's designed, because especially in female sports, there are a lot of queer athletes and they deserve to be recognized and they deserve to be celebrated.
And we talk about women's sports, but there are also a lot of LGBTQ plus folks within the men's sports. And unfortunately at this point, they are not as comfortable to come out. And you mentioned safety. And I think part of it is that Megan Rapinoe said something like, no one has ever won a sports game without a gay person on their team. And I truly believe that. And that's across men, women, everything. The LGBTQ plus community is all around you. Whether or not they feel comfortable or not is actually on the community. Because that environment decides whether the person feels comfortable or not to come out. My hope is that 20, 30 years from now, we see even more people be exactly who they are, whatever that is.
Yep.
Happy Pride. We'll be celebrating all month. Our social calendar is filled during the month of June, which is a lot of fun. And we just get to be in community with people. If you have the opportunity, whether you're an ally or whether you're part of the LGBTQ plus community and there is an event going on, I encourage you to go, because if you want to see joy in person, I think Pride events is where you see joy in person.
Yes.
All right, let's get into what we're looking forward to this week. Go ahead, Danielle.
First off, Tuesday, June 4th, today, if you're listening on Tuesday, the U.S. women's national team plays against Korea at 8 p.m. Eastern on True TV and Max. It will be interesting to see if they go with the same starting lineup or switch it up to something new. We'll see what Emma Hayes has in store.
I have a feeling it's going to be switched up just a bit to see different players working together. Emma Hayes needs to decide this Olympic roster after this game. She has until the end of June, but before their next friendlies in July, the Olympic roster is going to be set. So I anticipate that she'll be moving some people around, and then they have some training practices, and then the decision needs to be made. We got to cut it down to 18.
Go US. What are you looking forward to this week?
I am looking forward to the French Open. The quarterfinal is today on June 4th when we release. The semifinal is on June 6th, and then the final will be on Saturday, June 8th. As of when we're recording, we know that USWNT, Coco Gauff, and Ons Jabeur are in to the quarterfinals. So we'll see what happens, but I will be watching that final on Saturday. The Women's College World Series for softball. The final begins on Wednesday, June 5th at 8 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. This is a best of 3 series between the two teams who made it out of the double elimination rounds. So the second game will be played on Thursday, June 6th at 8 p.m. That could be it. If the team who wins 2 in a row. If they need, this is best out of 3. So if they need to, they'll play Friday, June 7th at 8 p.m. also on ESPN. It has been a really good Women's College World Series so far. I've been really pulling for Stanford. I think I'm a secret Stanford fan. I really like Nyjah Kennedy, the pitcher for Stanford. It seems like they don't have many other people to go to, which makes me worried about Stanford's longevity in this Women's College World Series, but they are the team that I am pulling for as of right now. I think the final, if I could make a prediction, will be Texas and Oklahoma. Texas looks so good right now. I can't imagine it not being them, but watch me eat my words. Whenever I make a prediction, I usually jinx the team. So maybe we'll have someone totally new. I just honestly don't want Oklahoma to win. They've won the last 3 years. You've already got a three-peat. We need someone fresh and new to come in.
So that's it for this week. We will see you next week on Women's Sports Weekly. In the meantime, watch women's sports. Rate and subscribe to the pod on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Share the podcast with your friends. Keep sending us topics you want us to cover on Instagram at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Thanks for joining us, and see you next week.
Happy Pride!
Happy Pride Month.